they voted for.
Well, I remember.
Vincent was there. Things were exciting.
George Meyer's sister.
Give me no drum.
Yeah, that's right.
Behind you.
Call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order for Monday, May 9th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Mark Hydrich.
Here.
Mark Kleesner. Mark Piontek. Tom Holtmeyer.
Here.
Mayor Hagedorn.
Here.
John Boardman.
Here.
Chuck Watson.
Here.
Samantha Wacker.
Here.
Carolyn Witt.
Here.
Mike Wood.
Here.
Sal Maniaci.
Here. Please rise for a pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know, you guys are gonna think there's something over here.
We don't think
I had
it.
my shots.
Your distance from us.
That's right.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the April 11th, 2022 meeting.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 3, file number 220501. The applicant is requesting approval of a special use permit for a short-term rental at 2134 Matilda Court. Sal?
Yes, so the first of two requests tonight for short-term lodging. This one is located again off Matilda Court off of, in Cricket Creek Estates. So this is Studerman Road to the north, and you can see it's one of the cul-de-sac streets here, kind of hidden away. And you can see it is R1A, single-family residential, just like everything south of 100. Any single-family south of 100 is pretty much R1A. This is a little bit of, I guess, of a unique request for short-term lodging just because of the area, you know, it's not close to where we typically see them. You know, we have had two of these. The only two we've ever gotten denied were south of 100. One was in Deer Run, and one was in Lake Washington. Yeah, thank you. And I think both of those, the neighbors had quite a bit of concern on this one. I let the applicant know. To be honest, I don't think they're local. I corresponded with them via email. I think they're getting ready to move here or purchasing this, and from what I understood in the emails, they are looking to possibly do this until they move here full-time. And so I let them know it could be difficult in this location, but from a staff, that's just historical how votes have gone. From a staff's recommendation, it doesn't change our recommendations on this. For short-term lodging, we don't make recommendations specifically on how close it is to tourism activities. Ours is if it creates a detriment to the neighborhood. And so in this case, you know, we say really, by definition, short-term lodging is incidental to the neighborhood. It's just taking what could already be there and doing it on 30 days or less. We already have laws in place for everyone else for nuisance and sound and, you know, if there's gatherings, parties, to protect the neighborhood from that. And in this case, they do have off-street parking. So our recommendation is still approval for this. We did send out letters to the neighborhood, everyone within 185 feet. So it actually did touch, in this case, homes on, I'm sorry, I'm pointing on the wrong thing, homes on Studerman and I'm blanking on the street name down here, the one to the south. But it did cross outside just this block. And so we notified quite a few people, and I did not receive any phone calls, and obviously no one's here tonight, so.
Okay.
Any questions, comments by board?
I mean, I guess I reviewed this, and I mean, well, first of all, I'm troubled that the applicant isn't here first. I think they should be here, have somebody representing them here, but my concern is, I mean, I believe that they mean well, but I am concerned that this puts us on a slippery slope of, you know, we have a history of denying these types of things when they're in really a residential, single-family neighborhood. I mean, when they describe in the packet, they're classifying this as a two-family home. I mean, that's not that's not the zoning. It's not a two-family area. I mean, I tend to favor these. I think they're good for the community, but I'm not sure that it's appropriate that we get into the habit of approving these in a very clearly residential subdivision type of area. And that's my concern.
And I guess I'm with Samantha, it's like, you know, that they're nobody's here to, you know, represent themselves either.
Sal, do you know, putting the second family in the basement, and I know egress is always an issue with that. Have we looked at it? Do we know, are there bedroom egress windows to
So
code,
not from
or-
any current occupancy inspections, but again, that would be before, they could put that in the application all they want, but until they get that approved from the building department, it could just be single family. I know that's their intent, but at the end of the day, they have to get that approved for having a secondary egress on there. And I do understand that this is technically single family, that is kind of a loophole when you get a special use permit for short-term lodging, that it allows you to have, as long as the building code approves it, it gets you the loophole around the single family in the neighborhood. So I
'Cause
totally
I heard them
understand.
say they had an outside entrance, a sidewalk around the back. You know, I read that in here too, that
Yep.
that was all there, but, you know.
So they would
normal-
have to have it inspected, they would have to have it built out for just like any other two-unit apartment with, you know, the exit signs and
Right,
all
right.
that, so.
Well, and on top of that, I mean, there's no, I mean, this is approving the whole property. This is not approving just the basement apartment, because it's not two addresses. This is one address.
Correct.
So there's nothing to say that they couldn't use the entire house in this way, which again, you know, I'm just not sure that it's an appropriate use for the neighborhood. That's my concern.
Totally understand.
Do we have a way to defend our decision? Because, like, how's that different than Locust Street, really?
Yeah, I mean, Mark couldn't make it tonight. I would say I think we're pretty comfortable with being able to defend that if it came to that because of, I mean, if you look at the other ones that have been approved, they're either in a mixed-use area, like zoning-wise, or it's R2 overlay or R1B, or within walking distance of that. So I do think there's room to stand by that. I also get I get the assumption from just emailing back and forth with them, they were just like, let's just throw in the application, see what happens. So, because I told them, and it's not likely, you know, I kind of just said I discouraged from it, said, you know, you may want to look at another area. And they said, well, if we're not living there for a while, let's see if we can do it in the interim. And
Well, the one, I mean, on their application, it says the proposed lower-level dwelling apartment is 1,000 square feet and consists of 2 bedrooms, kitchen, all that kind of stuff. It says the area has a separate private main entrance and has been building approved with lower-level remodeled in 2020 by City of Washington, C. Blake M.
not for a separate apartment.
Right.
Well, I know.
That they
and
could
that's-
rent out.
That's, I guess, what I'm questioning.
You can add a second kitchen to your house all you want.
I know.
You can't
and
rent it
that-
out. Yep.
But I guess, again, getting back into John's question and stuff, though, too, if all this, then it does approve the egress fire stuff, if that's,
It sounds like they just got a building permit, that they followed the rules for finishing their basement,
Well, it
not
says is-
necessarily.
has been building approved in 2020. So I'm not clear exactly where they're coming from, I guess, is all of
Probably
that
maybe a
is-
previous owner.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's just, that is not clear to me, what,
Yep.
Or what did they
Samantha,
mean by that?
what,
Are
what,
you- are
and
you-
again, it's like, you know, again, it's like if they were here,
Could answer
to-
some questions.
Well, that's going to be my question. Do you,
Right.
do you, do you want to reject this, or do you want to put it on hold until the property owner can come before us?
My thought, Mike, is maybe to table it, and if they're serious, they can come before us and answer questions.
yeah.
I mean, I don't.
I don't have any problem with either one of them, to be honest with
I don't know
you.
that I'm
but-
gonna change my mind, but maybe I will, I don't know. But I don't know that my concerns are gonna be different, but at least we could address some of these questions and have somebody to answer them.
Would make them at least feel like they're getting a fair shot before us,
Exactly.
before we vote it. I mean,
Right.
even if it does get voted down, at least they got a fair shot before us.
I agree with you, Mike.
Yep, I agree.
So, I mean, I'll move to table this
I'll second.
application.
Okay.
Sorry.
Is there any further discussion?
I guess the only other question, maybe we could talk to the building department and see if they have any type of,
What actually was approved?
what
Yeah.
actually was
I'm-
approved. Because I know 2 bedrooms are going to require 2 windows big enough for egress.
Right.
And I don't remember from the lay of the land over there.
Yeah, I
next
don't
to my
remember if
Backmore
they're on a
neighbor,
slope.
Right.
if there would be enough slope there that they could have a window on the sides that would meet that, because the problem you run into, it can't be any higher than 28 inches off the floor, I think, and then it's got to be so many inches
Yep.
high too and wide.
So
So,
many square inches opening, so,
you know, that may, if it's a sloped side, that may get a little bit
but it's
of
just
a
too many
challenge.
questions.
Yeah, I mean, they could have gotten a building permit for just the adding a kitchen down there and not actual to
Not
inhabit
actually
as a
calling
bedroom.
2 bedrooms.
Yep,
2
which we
bedrooms.
see all the time.
There's no further discussion. We have a motion on the floor. All those in favor of tabling?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Moving on to item number 4, file number 220502. The applicant is requesting approval of special use permit for a short-term rental at 910 Missouri Avenue.
All right, so another request for,
Don't be afraid. See, the good news is we're here.
yeah, yeah. Well, and in this,
Sitting there listening to this.
yeah, I will say, even without Ed here, in this case, it is a little bit different. So in this request, obviously, we have, here's the highlighted property, Missouri Avenue. For people who aren't aware, before the highway was built and everything, this used to be an alleyway, and we had right-of-way frontage. This was First Avenue, and Missouri Avenue came down this way. And so there is kind of the access here is a little bit funky, just because technically this is an alley to the rear of these homes, and then it accesses about 4 homes here. Property is zoned R1B, single-family residential, adjacent to an existing short-term lodging establishment under construction, but has been approved for that. Ed has already filled out or the applicant of this has already filled out the applications for the same use in this location, which is permitted in C1 without going to P&Z and City Council. The only other thing I'll mention here, if in this is right before I started because I looked at the staff report, in 2016, the previous owner of this asked to get this, asked for a request to rezone this to C1. And it was denied because of lack of appropriate access.
Correct.
And so we reviewed that staff report and staff's recommendation this time around. We decided it didn't necessarily have any reason to affect our recommendation with this, given that this is still residential in nature. So the current access that you have here for that use is still going to be residential in nature. It's just going to be changing tenants on a weekly basis rather than on a long term, but the trip generation is the same with cars coming in and out. And given the fact that they have access to the parking, not only on the subject property, but next door, gives them a little bit better access to the property. And so staff does recommend approval of this request for the short-term lodging.
Sal, then you're saying the property that he has is the one to the left
Correct.
also?
Yep. So, if you remember, this was built without, the building to the left was built without a building permit
That was weird.
a long time ago. I don't know, it's been there for a long
was
time.
very strange.
It changed hands multiple times via cash, and so there was never any due diligence, and owners would come in and realize, oh crap, we can't get a permit on it because it was not only built without a building permit, but it was over the right-of-way line here. And so if you can see how this looks, just last year, council approved a vacation request, a partial vacation request of this. You can see that's why it cuts down, because the topography here, we were never going to build First Avenue, so we didn't have an issue with that. But we do have a sewer line that runs down there. And so staff recommended, and city council also agreed to vacate a portion of that. And so that cleaned up that situation. It looks like that building is slightly on this property, but that aerial is just off. It actually is shifted to the east, and so that building is not over the property line in this location. It is right here. So that has been cleaned up since the last time anyone's looked at this in 2016.
Isn't there
Sal-
another,
But Sal, the other properties look like they are, sorry, Mike. The other
ahead.
properties look like they are on property lines
Well, so what,
to the east.
that happens a lot. Our aerials don't necessarily match up exactly with our lines. And so what I would imagine, and we wouldn't know for sure until we got a survey of each one, if you would take this entire block and shift it probably 10 feet on the aerial, all of these would line up to where they actually are. That happens on the older part of town on our maps. It'll look like the property line's going down your house, but it just doesn't, the layers don't show up on our computer right, so.
Isn't there another short-term rental on the other side too?
There
Didn't
is.
East and Dale still work doing construction on that one over there? We approved
Yeah,
that a
I
couple
apologize, I
months
didn't
ago.
have that map up when I
Right.
took a screenshot.
But it's up there, right?
Yes, yeah, there's a couple in this location. And then actually, I don't think they've gotten their license for it yet, but they've added, this office here has an upstairs, and the zoning would allow for it. They've showed interest in doing an upstairs unit as well, and so you'd kind of have some, right when you come off the highway here, a couple here, so.
You don't have a zoom back map a little bit further that shows the other short terms in the area?
I don't, I apologize, I didn't turn them on when I took this, but there is one right across here. There's two just on this screen, one right next door, one across the highway, and then this one has not gotten their license yet, but has gotten the application.
The thing that was gonna go in here was a business, wasn't it? It was a
Right, like a spa.
Spa.
The
It was
spa.
a
Yeah.
spa.
And that was our concern, because it wouldn't be short-term, you have a family or a group, maybe 2 cars, maybe, but that was a business.
Right,
The
there were
trip
gonna be
generation.
a lot of traffic in and
Yeah,
out of that
mhm.
spa
So,
location.
I
It
think
just, yeah, that was the
this-
concern.
Well, and it technically does not have the right-of-way frontage that, you're supposed to have 60 foot of right-of-way for commercial, and that alley doesn't technically count, and so that's where, yeah. You'd have to either make some major improvements to Missouri Avenue, or, and I think we've talked about this with Ed, that since he owns both, if you wanted to, you could combine this into one lot now, and you wouldn't have that concern anymore. But until he, there's no need to for this use.
Any other discussion?
And that alley goes through, so
All the way to Madison.
Madison,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, Ed Schmeltz. Just to answer a couple of questions, Mark, to your point, the buildings are not on the property line. We did have a full survey done when we went to vacate the north alley, and I did not bring that with me, I'm sorry, but it is not, it's over. I mean, this is shifted to the east, those lines are, so everything is good. When we first looked at it, we were told the building to the west, which is 902 Missouri, we were told that that was over the property line to the east. It's actually not. So I do have that survey, we could provide it, I'm just,
It's in our packet.
oh, okay. So it should, hopefully that shows
On
that
your
it's not over.
Map toward the back.
So we are currently rehabbing the 20-year project there to the west. And I think I graduated Mizzou in '02, and I feel like when I went from, here up to there, I drove by and it was still under construction. I don't know, but, so we're about a month and a half away from having that finally completed as a guest house. And the property here to the east is currently a 2-family up and down. Each unit's about 1,200 square feet, and they're 3-bedroom, 1-baths. So like I said, one up top, one down below. John, before you ask, both units have a front and a back entrance.
Okay.
So they do, sets of steps in the front and back on upstairs. I'll have to check on the windows to see if they meet egress or not. I believe they do. But both floors have front and back exits. So hopefully we're okay there.
That one, that 907 has gotten recent it's grandfathered in with 2 units right now, because that has been inspected since it's been 2 units. I know that because the previous owners made sure that they could still utilize those 2 units. So unless one of our previous inspections was wrong, I would assume the bedrooms meet everything, so.
Because it would have to meet, I would think, the exit requirements for the
Yeah.
bedroom.
I mean, it's definitely, we've had this conversation with the previous owners since our occupancy law, so multiple times,
Because that's been on the books for years.
since 2007, yeah, so.
I was happy to see the upstairs had 2 sets of
Yes.
steps. Typically in those old buildings, they have one and that's it. So I thought that was a
That's
good deal.
plus.
One goes out to the front and one goes out to the backyard. So what we're going to be taking that from a 3-1 and making each one of these units a 2-2. So 2 beds, 2 baths, open them up, make them a little bit more spacious, which will also eliminate some of our parking needs. Because right now there's plenty of parking anyway. There's a 2-car garage That's, one for each unit right now, and there's probably 3 to 4 spots outside. So, eliminating 2 bedrooms, we feel will help us with our off-street parking also. We currently have 15 of these guest houses up in Herman, so we're not strangers to professional management of these. I think we do a pretty good job of this. We're not new to the game. So
Be nice to get that other house finished.
Yep. Any other questions?
No other reason, right?
Any other questions? Great, thanks.
okay, thank you.
Good luck. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve then.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. Sal, you have anything else?
Just 2 quick things. One, I do want to mention, it's not gone without conversation at City Hall that we have gotten more and more of these applications in. You hear about other communities kind of turning off the faucet on them because there's a lot of different concerns where the biggest one, if you have more Airbnbs going in to your community than you have new houses, then you're kind of defeating the community aspect of having families have an opportunity to buy homes in your community. We're not to that point yet, but there has been some conversations. If there's I don't think there's any sense of urgency, but we've talked about doing some research on modernizing maybe some of our codes because it even gets to a point, I don't think we have any neighborhoods to the point yet, but we may not have, if you look at how many new homes we've built, this is how many short-term lodging we approve in a year, it's not anywhere near having that concern, but you also don't want to have one specific neighborhood have that concern.
Right.
If you have, I'm just gonna pick on Cedar Street. If Cedar Street all of a sudden only had one actual home utilized as a home and the rest were all Airbnbs, then that kind of defeats the integrity of the residential integrity of the home, of the neighborhood. So we've talked about that a little bit internally. I don't think there's any reason to do any type of moratorium or any recommendation like that. We haven't seen that many come in, but we've started to look at what other communities do. It can go as intense as you only allow so many, and every year it's first come, first serve, and the fees get pretty expensive. That's, I don't know how Nashville does it. They pick a census block and they say, we'll allow 5 in the census block. And I know we talked about this morning, some communities say you have to live there for 2 years before you can rent it out, so it's not just outsiders coming in and buying them up and renting them out. So there's other alternatives. I just wanted to,
Well, true. Augusta's, they put a moratorium.
They put a moratorium.
Because basically, all the investors coming in, but that's what, as there was something on the news just the other day about, just like you're saying, it's like investors just coming in and buying entire streets and putting them up as
Yeah.
and
Well, when you have no new single-family homes built and then all Airbnbs come in, if someone wants to move to that community.
And that's what, their whole thing and stuff too, was, like you say, the integrity of the neighborhood and stuff too. When you have just people turning over and stuff like
We need
that.
families,
Yeah.
Well,
kids in
n-
a
It
school.
sounds like this is an issue that we need to talk about with the comp plan.
Correct.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of leading to the next one, but I think it hasn't gone over our heads. We're talking about it because if you go back in our agendas, we've had at least one pretty much on most of our agendas for the past year. So they're definitely popular, and we went from 35 to 44 active in this past year, and because of their popularity, we know we have more people doing it illegally. So we're trying to figure out how to find an affordable company that can. We found some companies that will monitor that for us and actually send the letters out and say they can get to 95% legal and conforming. It was like $35,000 a year, and if we can't prove that we're collecting that much in the bed tax, I don't know if I can justify it.
right.
So
Right, it's gotta justify what you're losing in the bed
yeah.
tax.
So, but I've had 2 companies tell us that we have close to 80 at any given time actually actively advertising, and we only have about 40-some doing it the right way. So it's not a level playing field. So Emily Underdown, a tourism director, we've done Zoom interviews with 2 organizations. They were both pretty expensive, and we're going to find a third that would hopefully be incentive-based, that the more they collect, the more maybe they get a percentage of it, so that way it's Yeah, so,
It's not only the tax issue too, I think it's a safety issue. Are
Well,
they putting
and-
them in,
Yeah.
are they
Part of
putting
that-
them in that have been inspected to meet our
Well,
codes?
that's-
But it is, I mean, it's unfair, I mean, if for the folks that do go through the process and do it correctly, and then you've got someone who's doing it, not following the process, it is lost revenue for the city, and it is an unfair advantage,
Yep.
because then, of course, they can charge a lower rate if they're not paying all
well,
the required
either two things
taxes.
are happening, and they're both bad. Either they're charging a lower rate and undercutting the people who are doing it correctly, or they're charging the same rate and keeping that 5% for themselves.
Right, either
Either way,
way,
yeah.
it's not good, and then, as you said, the safety issue is a problem too, because, okay, it's all good until somebody loses an eye, right?
Yep.
I mean,
There's a
or
fire.
there's a
and somebody-
fire, exactly, or
dies.
there's, a criminal offense or something of
Yep.
that nature, because we don't know, I mean, they might not be screening correctly, I mean, I
Yeah,
have no
well,
idea.
and that's, because I mean, Airbnb, and VRBO, you have to have a background check and submit your license, and those now are getting to the point where we've submitted, they are getting to these smaller towns where they'll actually collect the tax for us, so our finance department doesn't have to track it down, which would be nice, but to get on that level playing field,
I know that Herman is experiencing problems with it.
I thought they did a moratorium, but somebody told me they didn't actually do a moratorium yet,
No.
they're just looking at new.
Yeah, I'm a good friend with the fire chief at Herman, and their challenge is they're losing population.
Yeah.
So they're losing the volunteers and all the stuff that a smaller community needs to stay thriving. And they're really concerned about it. And when he said he had 11 of them, that kind of perked my ear a little bit because, that's part of what goes on. They lose the playing field for people to come and help in the community because they're.
Well, you lose the workforce, you lose your school, you lose a lot of things
yes.
when that happens. in
We
a
got
community.
a larger populace, larger cities, so it's not as much of an influence now.
Yeah.
And I don't think we would ever let it get to the point that it's affecting the smaller communities. But Herman's only a population of about 3,000,
Yeah.
so.
I just,
Well, I know that they do have concerns also there about, people coming in that, have no ties to the community, that don't care if
Don't
they
care,
tear up
right.
your place or, get drunk and disorderly or who knows what in the community. And again, hopefully the background checking helps with that, but not completely.
not always, no. And I wanted to bring it
Yeah, I
up
think
because
it's
we've
good
gotten,
watching it.
I guess the article about the Augusta, and I don't know what was shared about Herman, but I've gotten a lot of questions about it recently, so we're looking into it, but at this point, we don't think it's an issue where we need to like
Right. I
put a pause on it, but as it continues to grow, I mean, especially if we had, again, one neighborhood become inundated with it, then maybe we need to look at it block by block or see what, we're not big enough to do census block because one census block is about a ward. So that'd be hard to do, but we're looking at what cities our size do, so.
I guess I would rather that we be proactive about addressing it rather than reactive for when
The
we have a
wait
problem.
until
Yep.
it's
Yeah.
a problem.
So, I just wanted to put that out there that we're talking about it. And then the other thing, I just want to let everyone know, we had our kickoff meeting today with H3 Studios. So Tom, the mayor, Darren, Wayne, John, and myself sat down with them to go over really just the overall schedule, the timeline of where they're looking at. Right now, they're looking at June 2023 completion. So obviously, that's over a year. That is their first throwing out of a schedule just to make sure we have enough time to get everything that we need to get done. They originally thought 9 to 10 months, so we've even looked at some areas we can tighten up in there. And that June 2023 would be full adoption. So you would have it completed 2 months early before that, and then a lot of discussion. So we are putting together our steering committee. With that, they had some recommendations on diversifying that from, not only people on our boards, but also maybe some business leaders and interest groups. So we're going through that right now of who we want to get on there. One date, I want everyone, and this is tentative, H3, we gave them the date today. They're going to let us know in the coming weeks to make sure it works for them. But since we're all in the same room, I'm going to tentatively tell everyone Tuesday, June 21st at 5:30, they would like to have a workshop. They do 3 workshops, one with department heads, one with what they say is stakeholders, people who are the community members that have interest, and then the third, well, I'm saying third, they're going to do it first, is with planning and zoning and city council actually at the same time. And it's basically, it's an exercise that you review your existing comp plan, the goals and objectives of it, and then figure out where you want, what you want to keep, what you want to change. And they want to get the input from P&Z and city council at the same time. So right now, we're aiming for, council actually has a meeting that night at 7, so we thought let's just do it at 5:30 on the 21st and have an hour and a half, and then we'll roll into the council meeting. If that changes, I'll send out an email, but that's what I wanted to get on everyone's calendar for now, because that's gonna start, they want to get those first workshops on, they want to start with comparing it to our existing comp plan, our goals and objectives that we either don't want to keep or how we did and build on. That's kind of step one. And so they want to get all 3 of those workshops done in June.
Do we have homework we need to do in preparation for that?
Well, I asked them, because I kept calling it an exercise.
That's why
So I
I
asked them if there's gonna be,
I heard you say that word.
yeah,
That's why I'm
if
asking.
there's gonna be something they need to hand out, but, maybe. But I'll find out. They said they'll let me know by tomorrow if that date is good or not. They're even gonna get us kind of, a list of, what each group is committing to do, what we're expecting of each group, so, they're gonna give us that material.
Okay.
For $130,000, I would hope they give
Yeah,
us all
yeah,
the material we need.
Hey, you bargained them down to that, Sal. so-
Yeah, yeah,
And found the money, so.
yes.
So,
Any
you
other-
sure that date's right? Why don't we have a meeting on the 20th?
Because it's our first time we're observing Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
So, the
14th
council meeting got
closed.
moved from Monday to Tuesday.
State holiday.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, I know, we all had to make sure that that was correct today.
Yep.
Yeah, because the Juneteenth is a Sunday, and since Sunday, we observe it
Right.
Monday, and then, yeah. So,
Any other questions, comments? That's it. Entertain one last motion.
Motion to
Motion.
adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
thank you.
Well, thank you. This was
Don't
enlightening.
think that this is the way they normally go.
Thank you, Ed, for being here.
Because that's not the case.
Yeah.
I can't order a
Thanks for
short
getting
meeting?
that eyesore
No.
taken care of.
Shoot. This isn't the shortest one we've ever had, but it ranks right up there pretty close. We had a shorter one a few months ago.
Well, is that one?